Hi everyone, so it was recently requested for me to do another video and start up on my YouTube channel again. So that's what I'm going to try to do now. So if you have any topics that you want me to discuss or anything, just let me know in the comments or let me know on my Instagram. Just whatever. Because I'm not that really creative on these types of things. I wouldn't go on ages on something. Most of it's just the length of an Instagram post. So today, I was thinking about speaking a bit about the importance of a government's maintaining its population in fear, because that's something that you can see in a lot of totalitarian regimes, almost all of them actually. And even you'd actually look at this to governments today. So that's how I'm going to organize things. In other like totalitarian regimes, let's take the Nazi regime under Hitler. I think that's the perfect example. They terrorized a lot of people. What they did basically was that before they restricted the Jews, to gain their power, they came up with this. The Jews in their society at that time, actually coming up from like the 1890s, I think, a lot of people hated Jews, and Jews were regarded as Arabs are regarded in Europe today, actually, as people who stole jobs, as people who gained a lot more money than they should have, people who stole, and people who actually spread general violence. So that's how Jews were regarded. So when Hitler said, okay, well, I'm just going to take care of the problem and things like that, people started believing him. And because they were in an economic crisis at the time, that was actually a direct consequence of the Wall Street crash in the 1930s. Well, people were like, well, the mainstream policies of left and right wing today aren't working, so maybe this is what we need to try. And so they voted Hitler in. Actually, the communists got more votes than Hitler did, but he kind of took those away. The ones he didn't like, they kind of whoops, they disappeared. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the president now. It's like chancellor in Hitler's case. That's basically what happened. And so when he took care of the Jews, we were just like, okay, that's going to be a problem to take care of. And no one actually came up and said something about it before it was actually too late. And although, to those who don't know, I know the French resistance is pretty famous, but there was a pretty big German resistance as well at the time, even though it's very under-documented. So any kind of government on the example of the Hitler government, was that they needed to put a population in fear of Jews, in fear of violence, economic crisis, of what could come next. If they maintained that fear, they could pass any laws they wanted. And you can see that with the United States today. After 9/11, I'm not saying anything about 9/11, there's not enough proof on either side to really consider something and to accept it as the truth. But if you look at 9/11, those 2 or 3 plane crashes actually served a big interest for the United States of America, because on those 3 planes, on those 3,000 dead, they conducted 2 wars in 2 different countries with millions of deaths afterwards. And the Americans just like, go ahead. With the fear of 9/11, with the fear that 9/11 left, they passed tons of laws. They passed the Patriot Act. They started passing the FDAA, which they now pass regularly every few years. And Obama, I think, signed it last in 2012. And those kind of things are meant to restrict your rights on the basis of terrorism. And I've read an article about the FDAA, and I actually read parts of the FDAA, and it says that they can basically infinitely detain you if they have reasonable suspicion that you're a terrorist or have terrorist links. So even as a French person, because I'm French, if Obama thinks that, well, oh, my Instagram account is so terrorism related, he could just, if I'm on American soil, I don't know about the French soil and how they actually get on that, but if I'm on American soil, he can just detain me in Guantanamo as long as he wants to, and it's perfectly in the rules. Now, that's where I started to have a problem with American laws. Even as a French person, even if it wasn't me, any American person, you can't just do that and call yourself a democratic, free government. No. So it's really that kind of fear that the government needs, as 9/11 showed, to actually pass those laws and not have massive protests. If you look at 9/11, I think that it's really the perfect example almost of 21st century governmental action. Because if you look at it, it was a horror. I mean, I can't think about it without getting chills. There's so many poetic and dark songs that were written about it. There's so many newspapers that wrote about it. And the number, if you just look at the number of magazines that actually registered all the pictures under documented like photojournalism about 9/11, just put them all in there. And you just have chills from beginning to end. And I know this. I mean, I read Life magazine from 2001 year, like last weekend, and it was horrific. And they actually play with that humane fear to pass all those laws. Now, if you look at the basis of France, and if you go back to Hitler, what's happening in France today is what's happening with Hitler in 33. Yes. Basically, what happens in France is that we all blame everything that's happening on the Arabic immigration because as a as an ex-imperialist state, we invaded. Well, yeah, we invaded. I'm sorry, we invaded Algeria and Morocco, and we stayed there for a big length of time. And once we got out, states were basically in chaos. And we have had a lot of immigration from Algerians and Moroccans. And I'm not going to judge this at all right here. I'm just saying it's a fact. And French society today is blaming basically all criminality and undereducation on them. And I'm not saying that the stats don't show it, but I just want to say something here. If they're under our society today, it's because our system made it that way. Now, if you want to find a solution, it's not kicking them out. It's not treating them like Jews under Hitler. That's not the solution. I'm not going to go on that in this video, but they play on your fear of those people to get elected. Marine Le Pen, which is part of the Front National in France, that's exactly what she's doing. She's actually using 9/11 to a certain extent. This fear of Islam and of Muslims in the Western community is immense. I mean, it's all we have, basically. So let's play on that. How else? Other examples of fears. Under Hitler, I know there was a night of shattered glass, I think it translates to in English, where it was actually the first event where they started oppressing Jews. It was that night, and what happened is that the Hitlerian forces, it wasn't the SS. It was some other internal police force, German internal police force, that basically broke all the windows of all Jewish stores and Jewish services on a night in the 1930s. I'm really not sure about the dates. It's around 35 or 34. And that raised a lot of fear because, I mean, to a certain extent, it's actually, I really don't want to say poetic, but it's certain dark and it just plays with your emotions, kind of shattered glass. It just stays in your mind. That phrase just won't go away. And you just remember it. And that actually terrorizes millions that way. Just with something as simple as a phrase, as shattered glass, you know? So that was something they used. I mean, obviously, even you can see this in the USSR when Stalin came to power. It was like, if you don't do as I say, you're going to the gulags. I mean, it's something as simple. Hitler did the same. You're not doing as I say, you're going to Dachau. I mean, it's pretty simple for them. But fear is actually really essential to how tyrannical governments get in power. And you can't just overlook that. And I think that you actually have to know that. Yeah, you have to know it to recognize it. But you also have to be asking yourself the question every single day. This new law, is that trying to spread fear? Or is it based on fear? Or this new event, can it be used as a justification for inhumane and unrightful laws? You have to ask yourself that question every single day. Because if you don't for like 2 weeks, you're going to come back on something and be like, Oh my gosh, why didn't I see this sooner? This is totally acting into governmental plans. I'm not blaming any governments in this video apart from like Hitler and maybe to a certain extent the USSR under Stalin. But I'm just saying, you really need to look at this fear to understand it and to recognize it in future tyrannical governments. Yeah. Guess that's about it. I guess you just need to remind yourself that fear is totally a prison. That's one of my favorite quotes. Fear is a prison. It's your own mind that's playing tricks on you, but you have to remember that the danger is real. All right, you still have to be perfectly rational, but you just have to stop yourself and be like, is this serving another agenda? Is this gonna help another politician come to power? Because 9/11, 3 planes, 3,000 dead, and look at the ongoing war in Afghanistan. Look at Obama droning over Syria and Iraq right now. Just a side note on that. Dear Obama, or dear NSA, DFBI, or DCIA, or DGSQ, or whatever the UK one is, or even dear French services. I mean, if you think that bombing people is going to solve the problem, then you seriously need to, read a sociology book or something. How many more Muslims do you have to kill before wanting to stop Muslims killing you? That's the Iraq War or the Afghan War. All the civilians that you're killing by that. Even though you say, oh yeah, but we're killing more terrorists. All the civilians you're killing, that's the way you spread terrorism. And the bad thing about terrorism is that, imagine you just bomb some village and you kill, let's say, this 12-year-old boy. His father, he's gonna want to kill you. Religious extremism or not, it's got nothing to do with Islam. If the Middle East was wholly Christian, it would have been the same thing. He's gonna want revenge. He's gonna want to kill you, Obama. And that's got nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. It's got nothing to do with Islamic State. Actually, it does. Because it's that way that those terrorist groups gain power. It's by getting all those supporters who have lost a child or a mother or a sister, a brother or a father in your drone strikes that things like that happen. That groups like that exist. Dropping bombs is not going to solve the problem. And, I mean, the phrase, I was just like, what the hell? We don't negotiate with terrorists. So you're going to kill them instead. The ones you funded and trained. I think that, what's his name? John McCain, he didn't have too much of a problem talking with them when he met the ISIS commander in Jordan in 2012, did he? No. Although they were the Free Syrian Army at the time, weren't they? Not like they didn't say that they wanted Sharia law in Syria. I'm probably going to make another video about why the US is involved in Syria and Iraq right now and what they've got to gain from that. But that's going to be for another video. So I hope you really like this one, I guess. I was just droning on and on. Things that came to mind about fear. Probably forgot a lot of things actually, but whatever. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I can improve in any way. Please let me know for topics, because I'm not that much of a creative person, and I pretty much have opinions on everything. So, and if I don't, I'll get an opinion. So yeah, just let me know. Thanks. Have a good day or night, wherever you live.